So this first unit is about the history and evolution of physical activity in sport. Um, Most students got into the course because they were more interested in the musculoskeletal, the anatomy, those types of things, the physiology. But the reality is this is an intro to kinesiology. And when you go off to different kinesiology programs, the history of sport is quite important. And it's important to understand sort of where it's come from, how it's changed over the years and how it's changed now and how it's really changing at this point, because there's some massive changes that are occurring in terms of how we look at, in terms of training and how we're dealing with young children and youth with their experiences in sport, because very few are choosing to continue with it. We become obsessed with everybody becoming a professional athlete. And the reality is very few people become professional athletes. And so we're turning a lot of people off of sport. So it's important, this whole aspect of the history and the evolution of sport, which is unit one. And then unit two will be more the sociology of sport, which again is another subject area within kinesiology. You'll take courses in if you go into kinesiology at university. Again, maybe not what you guys were wanting to get into right away, but it's good to get it done, get it covered, to see where we've been and to sort of see where we're going. And then everything else sort of applies to there. So your first activity is sort of the history and the evolution of physical activity in sport. So basically, what you're going to do is you're going to go into that section, and everything has sort of a minds on section, so it makes you think a little bit. All right, so just a quote, and then it gives some images, and you were supposed to reflect upon one of these images. So again, make sure that this goes into the discussion drop box, and again, you can see what other people do. There's a rubric that's tied to this. There's rubrics of everything basically almost that I do, almost everything. So if you don't get the mark you wanted to, go back to the rubric. The rubrics usually are laid out with all the information or all the steps that you were supposed to complete. So if you miss something, right, so one of these four things is missed, all right, then what you'll end up with is in a situation whereby on that rubric, it's going to be a 0 in that section of the rubric. So you can go back, you can fix it up, and you can resubmit it. But use this button to join the discussion and then to share your answer and then to reply to somebody else. When you do reply to this discussion to someone else's, it's easier to actually just create a new thread and just say replying to and name the student you're replying to and then type in your response. And then it'll come up for me and I'll then be able to mark that information for you. The next section talks about looking back. And so you've got, in many cases, they've got these little interactive resources that it can be done. And so you can go through and take a look at that. And then that information is then used to complete this graphic organizer. Again, when you download graphic organizers, make sure you save them somewhere other than just working out right away, because often the edit function isn't working. So you got to save it to the hard drive of your desktop, of your laptop, something of that sort, in order to be able to then do it. This talks about accessing the toolkit, and I think it's just referring to some of the things that occurred in the introduction unit. Again, when this is completed and done, you can submit your work. Don't be afraid to do a bit of your own research here as well, because there's a good base given right here, but don't be afraid to go in and find some information for other things and other sources of information. Especially in the case of memorializing things, because you'll be able to find out the different memorials that have been created. They're always being created for some of these events because they were that impactful that even many years later, they're still putting up memorials. So be sure to do that. The next section here, it's your history. All right, and so what happens in your history, it's the same sort of template as with comparing historical significance, but now you get to pick 3 things: one international, one national, one local. Local meaning in your area, your community, your school. So different events that occur, and you can then answer it based on the same table that was used previously. And then for part B, once you've done that, I want you to research the events in terms of the importance to you, right? And give an explanation as to why you put them in that order. You'll find many of the assignments in this first section or in the course in general, it's about your experiences and how you can connect your experiences to the course. So be sure that you put in detailed, good answers in order to get full marks. But definitely everyone's capable of doing well, especially in the first sections, because of the fact that it's about your own experiences. Then the next section talks about the spirit of being. So it's looking at Aboriginal peoples and the sport and the meaning it plays in their lives. And then the activity is going to have you do sort of a reflection between that and what things look like in the Olympics. And again, it's kind of making you reflect on the fact that it's unfortunate that where we've taken a lot of sport, it's all about the winning, right? And the true meaning of sport, the true reasons for sport historically, were people to come together, to have fun, to make friends, to push themselves to their own personal limits. And that was the goal, instead of basically being the best in the world and getting the endorsements and the sponsorships and what sports seems to have become now, the big paycheck. So again, discussion, click on there. You can go in and answer your questions. And then there's an image reflection again. So basically, going to pick an image and then answer these components to it and then put this in the Dropbox. So again, keep in mind, if you get something back, it's not the mark you wanted, be sure to go back and check the rubric and see where things might have went wrong. And you can fix up just that section and resubmit it.